The Biden administration has already provided some concessions to Senate Republicans on the matter of the infrastructure deal. Now, the infrastructure bill is still in the negotiation process. The Biden administration, along with the Democratic Party, are still entertaining the idea of getting Republicans to sign on to it. But there are some progressive Democrats who are like, let's get this going. We're wasting time. We need to do this through reconciliation. We're not going to be able to do this in the Senate with a vote of 60 senators saying, yes, we're in favor of this infrastructure bill. Remember, it's Mitch McConnell who clearly noted that he will not in any way go along with Joe Biden's agenda. His #1 priority is to fight Biden's agenda. So why would anyone think that Senate Republicans have any interest in good faith negotiations? They don't. But doesn't matter. Biden is still engaging with them as if they're good faith actors, and it is incredibly frustrating. So what are the concessions? Well, first, let me just note that Republican senators leading the talks with the Biden administration said Tuesday that they would release a nearly $1 trillion counteroffer, up from the initial $568 billion GOP counter plan put forward earlier this month. It comes after Republicans on Friday rejected Biden's trimmed down $1.7 trillion American jobs offer that cut $550 billion out of his original $2.3 trillion plan. A lot of numbers flying around. So the only thing to take away is that Biden has, in his mind, a much higher number. Republicans decided to go from a little over half $500 billion to $1 trillion with their new counteroffer. But while all of this is taking place, Biden has already agreed to some concessions. In his $1.7 trillion counteroffer, Biden proposed what's being referred to here as minor concessions. I think that's a matter of opinion, to be quite honest with you, to remove funding for research and development, supply chains, manufacturing, and small businesses. It would also reduce $100 billion for broadband expansion to $65 billion, matching what Republicans have proposed, and cut funds for roads and bridges. But what happened? I thought that Republicans were in favor of physical infrastructure. Republicans claimed they want physical infrastructure, not social infrastructure. So why is Biden randomly deciding here to cut funding for roads and bridges? And also, the broadband that's proposed in this infrastructure plan would overwhelmingly benefit Americans in rural parts of the country, typically Americans in red states, Americans who have Republicans as their local representatives. It is pretty incredible how much the Republican Party will, on one hand, pander to their voters, right, when it comes to culture war nonsense, but behind the scenes, they'll screw them, even with something as simple as offering them broadband internet. Okay, awesome. I don't know why Biden decided to make these concessions. They make no sense to me at all, especially when you look at polling indicating that his infrastructure plan is wildly popular. It's even popular with Republican voters. All he needed to do was really just fight for it rather than waste his time negotiating with Senate Republicans. And when it comes to the cuts in research and development, this is an incredibly vague way of reporting it, and I can only speculate as to what they're referring to with research and development. But remember, Biden wanted to focus on research and development pertaining to renewable energy. Republicans don't want that. They don't like renewable energy. They don't want to invest in it. And so my guess is that the cuts to research and development would hurt efforts to fund the research and development for renewable energy. Great. Again, concessions that did not need to be made. The trimmed down plan would still keep the corporate tax increases that Republicans have said that they won't support under any circumstances. It would also fund home caregiving for elderly and disabled people, electric vehicle expansion, and other social infrastructure components that Republicans oppose. So it's fascinating because it keeps some of the, look, Republicans are opposed to all of this. They claim they're in favor of physical infrastructure, but clearly they're not if they succeeded in getting Biden to concede to cutting the funding for roads and bridges. They're not in favor of any of this. but publicly they'll claim they're in favor of funding for physical infrastructure. Again, we're dealing with individuals who are not good faith actors. And it's not just the Republican Party that's littered with bad faith actors. We have quite a bit of that on the Democratic side as well, especially with someone like Senator Joe Manchin, who knows that the Republican Party has no interest in working with the Democrats at all on this. What's frustrating to me is that we're just wasting time. We're wasting time entertaining these GOP lawmakers who are just honestly doing nothing more than stalling. And we need to get this legislation passed. We need to get the American Families Plan passed. I just think we need to get to a point where Biden and Senate Democrats are actually playing hardball, and that's just not happening here. Republicans have said that they will only support spending on physical infrastructure, even though they got Biden to cut funding for physical infrastructure. Also, Senator Roger Wicker, who's a Republican from Mississippi, said the upcoming counteroffer would keep former President Donald Trump's 2017 tax cuts intact, avoiding corporate tax increases proposed by Biden, and instead repurpose already approved COVID-19 relief funds to pay for repairs to roads and bridges, broadband expansion, and other infrastructure. He characterized the price tag as matching what Republicans have discussed in closed-door meetings with the president, although the White House disputed that Biden gave them his support. That's the other thing. I mean, when you're dealing with bad faith actors, they're gonna leave the meeting with Biden and claim that Biden agreed to all sorts of things that he didn't necessarily agree to. So that's what you're dealing with bad faith actors. What are we doing here? Why are we wasting our time? It just makes no sense. Do you think Mitch McConnell would have any interest in bringing Democrats to the table when it comes to passing anything in his agenda? Do you think a Republican president has any interest in Democratic support for passing anything in his agenda or her agenda in the future? Who knows? Of course not. Of course not. Right now, you have the Democratic Party in control. They don't have enough of a majority in the Senate. There are still some obstacles in that regard. But you have Senator Bernie Sanders as the chair of the Senate Budget Committee. That's a tremendous amount of power. The House is still in the Democrats' hands. They still have the majority there, and Joe Biden is the Democratic president. Why are we wasting our time? I know I'm being a little redundant and repetitive here, but it's just so frustrating that with the limited amount of time we have, like before we know it, the midterms are here. It's very likely that Democrats are gonna lose control of Congress after the midterm elections, and then we're done. Then there's no opportunity to get any of this done. But let's go ahead and waste time with these ridiculous closed door meetings to deal with people who have no interest in actually passing this legislation. And again, take a look at what the priority is for Republican lawmakers. Senator Wicker is saying that, look, we care about physical infrastructure. We're gonna get Biden to cut funding for it. But what we really wanna do is protect tax cuts for the rich. And Biden didn't even begin the negotiation with a high tax rate. The corporate tax rate was 35%. Obviously not the effective tax rate when you consider deductions and all of that, but 35%, Trump cut it down to 21%, and Biden is proposing to increase it to 28%. And it's still not good enough for Republicans. Of course it's not. If they had their way, there would be no corporate tax. There just wouldn't be. They don't like taxes, because look, corporate taxes mean that, hey, maybe our donors are gonna be upset with us. Same goes for corporate Democrats. Corporate Democrats know who funds their campaigns, and they don't want these businesses and these business interests cutting off that money if they vote in favor of increasing corporate tax rates. That's what really drives this country. It's not what the polling indicates. It doesn't matter if the majority of Americans find this legislation to be very popular. What matters is what corporate donors feel about it, and corporate donors hate the idea of increasing their taxes, of course. So they're gonna go ahead and fight aggressively to defeat this bill. And unfortunately, they have bad faith actors in the GOP on their side, and they have some corporate Democrats on their side as well. Also, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said this month that he is 100% focused on stopping the Biden administration. Well, we all know that. I'm sure the Biden administration knows that. So again, for now the billionth time, why is the Democratic Party, along with the Biden administration, wasting time appealing to the GOP? Let's get it done. It doesn't matter what they have to say. All they want to do is serve as obstacles. That's it.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.